You're listening to the Voice of Islam Radio.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. Thank you very much for staying tuned. We are talking this morning about Palestine and the echoes of resistance in Palestine and the important role that Palestinian symbols play around creating this collective narrative of hope, resilience, and tremendous determination that we see from the Palestinian people. Before we went on to the break, onto the news break, we were talking to Baz Madouki, who is a Palestinian refugee and is currently doing her PhD from the University of Kent. Let's now go straight to our second guest, who is Professor Dr. Makram Khoury-Machool, who is the founding director of the Cambridge Center for Palestinian Studies. He's an internationally renowned academic specializing in international relations and political communications. Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. A very warm welcome to the Breakfast Show.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Makram, if I can start by asking you, firstly, what role do you think these Palestinian symbols are playing in the resistance movement?
What is fascinating, in fact, about symbols in general is the very fact that how we use them and later how we interpret them and communicate them to the outside world. In the case of Palestine, we are not talking about words as in language. We are talking, in fact, about symbols that are inherently related to the land. The struggle is about the land since more than a century, and since the release of the Balfour letter from London to the Zionist organization on the 2nd of November 1917. And since this struggle is about land, and since Palestinians have always wanting to keep their lands, they introduced to the world several symbols. The main one is really the Kefiyya or Kufiyya, which in fact is 1 square meter piece of cloth from cotton or linen, and it has several colors. The color was made out of black and white. It's a white cotton piece of cloth with black marks. Now, the black marks either resemble the fishing net, which relate to the Palestinian coast, and in particular to Jaffa, Akka, Acre, and Haifa in particular, and or it relates and reflects how the parcelization of the lands, the plots of the lands are divided. So clearly the Kefiyya is the main symbol because it is something you can wear and anybody in the world can relate to. Now, even the Kefiyya underwent a process of evolution. It's true that before the First World War, Palestinian farmers used to wear it in order to protect their heads from the sun or any sandy storm. But during the rebellion between 1936 and 1939 against the British occupation mandate, many Palestinian fighters used to wear it in order to hide themselves. But then the population, in fact, decided to wear the Kefiyya in general so that the British occupation forces will not exactly be able to identify the Palestinian fighters. So this was before the Nakba, obviously, before the climax of the Nakba between 1947 and 1949. Later, after the Nakba, it took another turn, in particular in the 60s, and chiefly when the first Palestinian female freedom fighter, in fact, hijacked the TWA airplane. Her name is Layla Khaled. She's still alive. She was only young, and she wore the kafia. And from that moment onwards, it only took Yasser Arafat a few years to deliver his famous speech in 1974 at the UN, where he wore the kafia. This took us the first Palestinian Intifada in 1987 for several years, where the youngsters wore the kafia, and then the second Palestinian Intifada, and up till now, where we see that the kafia is an internationally renowned Palestinian resistance symbol.
Okay, but we're talking about the history, of course, of these symbols, and including histories. You can talk about, the impact that the attack on the Central Archive building that has happened and that was targeted. What impact has this? What is the impact of this, and how have the Palestinians and other communities helped preserve this history?
Yeah, thank you for this question, which is very important because it's at the heart of Palestinian cultural management. It's important to know here that this is not the first time that the Israeli occupation perpetrates such crimes. It takes us back again to the climax of the Nakba between 1947 and 1949, where the Israeli terrorist organizations, in fact, either burnt or confiscated or just looted in different manners most of the cultural centers. It's during that period that the Palestinians faced their first catastrophe, and where their cultural, national, commercial, political institutions collapsed by the crimes of the Zionist organization. And if this is not enough, then this was repeated in the first Palestinian Nakba first Palestinian Intifada between December 87 and mid-1993, and again repeated in the year 2000 Nakba, when the Israeli occupation forces as well destroyed schools and computer labs, etc. Now, I hope that this time the Palestinian institutions managed save most of the material online, or have digitized it and somehow replicate it. But the true aim of the Zionist occupation is to obliterate the cultural heritage of Palestinians so that they minimize their attachment to the land, and they take them back to the beginning, where they can claim that they have no culture and they do not belong to this land. Therefore, this is ours, i.e. the land of the Zionist organization.
Mm-hmm. And one last question to you would be, after, facing continuous oppression for the last 75 years, what drives resilience into the hearts of Palestinians? Just a very quick and effective answer, please.
Yeah, I mean, in general, what have been taking place since the Nakba has been mainly ethnic cleansing and a mini genocide in installments. Today, what we see in Palestine in general and in the Gaza Strip is in fact a process of cleansocide, which is a combination of ethnic cleansing and genocide. This is the cleansocide. Now, what is really allowing the Palestinians to carry in their struggle, is the sense of loss, the trauma, the grief, the deprivation, which all are part and parcel of their national memory. But more than that, it's a just cause, the sense of belonging, self-confidence, fearless approach, conviction, revolutionary spirit, and definitely with all what supports them, like poetry and music of resistance.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mخول, for joining us. Really a pleasure to speak to you. All the very best with all the efforts, all the very best with the Cambridge Center for Palestinian Studies. Peace be with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us up. So that was Dr. Makram Khoury-Machool, who is the founding director of the Cambridge Center for Palestinian Studies, and he was sharing with us his thoughts and views about the Palestinian symbols.